Here is a clip from the new documentary, Chasing Trump. Watch.
4 corrupt, politically motivated prosecutors. One target, Donald Trump. They say they're upholding the law, but a close examination reveals politics of the very worst kind meant to influence the 2024 election. Investigations unprecedented in American history, part of a broader attempt to silence and penalize a president who challenged the status quo.
You have 4 or 5 different prosecutions in different form on different highly aggressive theories and applications of the law. On the eve of an election of the President of the United States, can there be any doubt that there's a sentiment of this is get Trump? Get Trump.
These prosecutions against President Trump, both the criminal prosecution along with the civil fraud prosecution, is blatant election interference. It's Democrat lawfare to take out President Trump. They fear that they can't beat Trump on November 5th, 2024, and so they just want to throw him in prison for the rest of his life.
Here to explain more, your favorite lawyer, Article 3 Project founder Mike Davis, who is part of the new documentary, Chasing Trump. Mike, thank you so much for coming back on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's talk about this. This is pretty intense, and just watching that, this morning, the comments of the president going into court, having to be physically present for jury selection, it has begun. What is the Trump team's strategy to combat this political persecution?
Well, I think that the president has done a very good job of getting out there and explaining to the American people that these are not legitimate criminal prosecutions, just like it was not a legitimate fraud case by New York Attorney General Tish James. Jean Carroll's defamation lawsuit was not legitimate. This is Democrats' lawfare. This is Democrat election interference by these Democrat prosecutors and Democrat judges and Democrat witnesses and Democrat juries in these Democrat hellholes, New York, D.C., and Atlanta. It's exactly what we've been talking about for the last nearly 2 years.
And you know what's very interesting? Talk about this, judge in particular. We see that there's bias. The judge should recuse himself. This judge has had quite a few cases put before him that involve Republicans or Trump supporters.
Yeah, it seems pretty amazing that this Democrats Manhattan judge, Juan Merchan, who donated to Joe Biden's campaign against Trump in 2020, who donated to another anti-Trump cause, whose adult daughter, Lauren Merchan, has a direct financial interest in her father's unprecedented criminal trial of President Trump that started today. She's a Democrat fundraiser and operative, one of the top ones in the country, and she has raised nearly $100 million off of this criminal prosecution of Trump, and she's an owner of her company, so she gets she has a financial stake in this. Judge Merchan clearly should have recused. He instead of not recusing, he actually, when President Trump raised this evidence, he expanded the gag order. He put an unconstitutional, illegal gag order on a criminal defendant for simply raising evidence of the judge's bias or appearance of bias. And it just seems quite random, Kimberly, that he keeps getting assigned to all these anti-Trump cases. It shows that this is not random. This is clearly lawfare by these prosecutors and lawfare by these judges, these Democrat operatives in New York, D.C., and Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, really, they are operatives. This is, not justice is blind. That is for sure. It's justice is biased and compromised and being converted to active lawfare against the president, election interference, essentially, trying to put him on the bench, trying to make sure that he is, not a contender on election day and somebody that can even be, voted for. And so far, it's failed miserably, but you still have to go through this whole process. And as you've been reporting, the judge, he obviously has a conflict of interest, right? We've talked about this. And there's even a specific New York law, as you know, right, that addresses this. It seems like such a clear-cut case. Why do you think that, he is still allowed, much like, Fani Willis, to, be on the case, et cetera, and she's allowed to remain in Georgia as a prosecutor. He's allowed to stay on this case in New York, despite a serious conflict of interest and a bias.
Yeah, so a former Clinton federal judge in the Southern District of New York, a very liberal judge, went on Caitlin Collins' show on CNN on April 5th and pointed out that under New York law, when you have 6 degrees of family involvement, you have to recuse. Well, a daughter is first degree. So this judge, Juan Merchan, whose adult daughter, Lauren Merchan, is fundraising and making money off of this criminal prosecution. That requires Judge Juan Merchan, this Democrat operative in a row, that requires his recusal. And instead of recusing, he gagged President Trump and said that President Trump can't talk about his daughter because apparently raising clear evidence of a judge's bias, or at a minimum, appearance of bias, somehow is lodging a violent threat now, according to these Democrats. And I would say this to these judges: I've done a ton of media hits since this gag order because there is no way in hell we should let these Democrat prosecutors and judges gag us. I'll say this at the Article 3 Project: I'm not going to shut up even if they put a gag order on me. I'll go to jail before I stop speaking out against this clear lawfare by these Democrats, this clear election interference. These are republic-ending tactics by these Democrats. What's their end game? They want to put President Trump in prison instead of having the American people put him back in the White House. That's not going to fly with the American people. There's no way in hell the American people are going to let that happen.
And I think, you're absolutely right. And I love this phrase that you use, republic-ending tactics, because that's exactly what it is. It's very troublesome. It's worrisome. I think it really shakes the core foundations of integrity and ethics of our justice system. And to me, the way this is going on, it really inures to the benefit of the president, because there is now a physical, image, a visual image of him sitting in court every single day for the next 4 weeks, absence of Wednesdays, and sitting there for jury selection on what should be, not even by any stretch of the imagination more than a misdemeanor, but they've tried to bootstrap it into some kind of felony on, it's outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, you were a prosecutor for a long time. There is no way you would still be a licensed attorney. You would probably be in prison if you're doing what Alvin Bragg and Matthew Colangelo and this Judge Juan Merchan and these other Democrat operatives are doing to any criminal defendant, let alone a presidential candidate, the leading presidential candidate. This is a criminal conspiracy by these Democrats, prosecutors, other attorneys, judges, to violate the civil rights of President Trump, his top aides, his lawyers, his supporters. These Democrats have politicized and weaponized our law enforcement, our intel agencies against their political opponents. That is a federal crime, right? And so when President Trump is back in office, his Justice Department must open a probe on this and do something about this, because like we said, Kimberly, these are republic-ending tactics. If we do not stop this, this is how our country falls apart. This is crossing the Rubicon. This is how the Roman Empire fell. It was the Roman insiders waging lawfare against Caesar, and he felt desperate, and he crossed the Rubicon from Gaul into Rome, and it led to a civil war in the fall of the Roman Republic. I'm not saying we're going to a civil war, but this is going to lead to a legal tit for tat between the parties that will destroy our country if it does not stop.
Yeah, it's gone on too long. It's too much. It's too far. So, as we say, essentially, this is a show trial in every sense, of the term, and it's not even a hush money case. Nothing to do with that. And also 2 separate entities refused to even pursue this, as you know, the FEC, because it's not a federal election crime case in any sense of the word. It's about entries in the company's records. Can you explain more?
Yeah, so remember the prior Manhattan DA, Cy Vance, the Manhattan U.S. Attorney, the Federal Election Commission, and Alvin Bragg himself declined to pursue this bogus election theory to bring felony charges for what are at best bookkeeping misdemeanors that are time barred. They're not even bookkeeping misdemeanors. Essentially, like many businessmen in New York, the allegation is that President Trump settled a nuisance claim back in 2016, and then they put it in the books in 2017, and they're trying to say that what they did in 2017 by putting it in the books somehow interfered in the 2016 election. Somehow it was a campaign benefit in 2016. It is a totally bogus legal theory, again, that they previously declined to prosecute, but they're just trying to get Trump. They're trying to bring bogus charges during the 2024 election. They did not want to pursue these charges until President Trump said he was going to run in 2024. Then you have 4 different criminal prosecutions by these Democrat prosecutors in New York, D.C., Atlanta, the Southern District of Florida, Jack Smith, Alvin Bragg, Matthew Colangelo, Fannie Willis, Big Tish James in New York with the civil fraud. This is all-out lawfare and election interference. And that's what this 30-minute documentary that you're playing right now, Chasing Trump, lays out very well. And I was very pleased to volunteer my time to participate in this.
Very nice. It looks outstanding. So let's talk about a little bit about this, because people want to understand it. And to the best of our abilities, I think we need to kind of lay it out, simplify it for what it really is. It's quite frankly based on a dubious legal theory, okay? Bragg says that the alleged bookkeeping errors were actually made in furtherance, like a conspiracy of another crime. But this other crime was neither stated, and this is the problem when this first came out, remember we talked about it? It was neither stated by Bragg himself, nor was it included in the actual indictment of President Trump. So it's some kind of mysterious, enigmatic, in furtherance of another crime that has not been specified, delineated, etc. At what point can this be challenged again to defeat the indictment in and of itself?
Well, if you had fair judges in New York, whether it's this trial judge or the New York Court of Appeals, the appellate division, and then the Court of Appeals, which is New York Supreme Court, if you actually had fair judges in New York, there's no chance this case would be in trial right now, because it's a bogus case that should have been dismissed at the pleadings phase. But because we have these left-wing judges in New York who have destroyed the legal system, this is what we have. We have Zimbabwe now, the Zimbabwean legal system in New York, because we have these Democrat operatives in robes. There's no question that the Supreme Court of the United States will eventually reverse this case, because it is such a clear constitution. There's so many clear constitutional
That's what
violations.
I think it's going to have to come to, and that's the problem, Mike.
That will happen after the election, and that's what they're banking on. That was Jack Smith's play with former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell back in 2016, a light presidential or vice presidential contender. Jack Smith brought a bogus theory, won a criminal conviction, destroyed Bob McDonnell's political career, and it wasn't until later that the Supreme Court unanimously reversed 8-0. It would have been 9-0, but Justice Scalia passed away. It is very hard for the Supreme Court to reverse any criminal conviction. It is nearly impossible for that to happen unanimously, but Jack Smith found the way, and that's what these Democrat prosecutors and judges are doing here. They want Trump as a convict, a convicted felon before November 5th, 2020.
That's what it is. That's what it is. They want him to be a convicted felon, for election day. They want to give him that title. So here's the problem I have as a former prosecutor. This is an indictment in case against President Trump based on the word, charging a felony on Alvin Bragg's word alone. To me, that is unbelievable and unprecedented.
Yeah, and it violates the Constitution. When you are a criminal defendant, you have due process rights.
That's right.
You have to know what the charges are against you so you can defend yourself. How the hell can President Trump defend himself against charges that Alvin Bragg won't even tell President Trump he faces? That is a clear violation of the Constitution, the due process clause of the 14th Amendment that requires fair notice of what you face as a criminal defendant. The only place that you don't have to tell the criminal defendant what the charges are third world Marxist hellholes like Zimbabwe and North Korea and now D.C., Atlanta, and New York City.
Okay, well, let's talk about this new documentary that we saw some clips of, Chasing Trump. It dives into all of the lawfare. What will we learn? What is the reveal in this and the takeaway? It's really nice images and shots there of the content.
I was very pleased to volunteer my time, like I said, for American Greatness, the good conservative people at American Greatness who produced this 30-minute documentary. We went through all of these criminal indictments against President Trump, along with Big Tish James's civil fraud lawsuit against Trump for the non-fraud of a businessman paying back sophisticated Wall Street banks in full, on time, as agreed with interest. But somehow that's fraud in the third world country called New York State. So we went through those cases against President Trump, the criminal cases, the civil cases, and it's very clear that this is Democrat lawfare. This is Democrat election interference. It's clearly coordinated. It is a criminal conspiracy, and President Biden has his hands, his fingerprints on all 4 of these criminal prosecutions against President Trump. Matthew Colangelo got sent from the Biden Justice Department, a very senior political appointee in the Biden Justice Department, in the number 3 office, to bring this unprecedented indictment of President Trump in New York. You had Jonathan Sue, President Biden's deputy White House counsel, on behalf of Biden, waive President Trump's claim of executive privilege, constitutional executive privilege, going back 250 years to George Washington, that led to Jack Smith's 2 indictments against Trump. And then you had Fannie Willis down in Georgia, her dumb, unqualified boyfriend, Nathan Wade, billed for 16 hours at $250 an hour, 2 of his meetings with the Biden White House, including the Biden White House counsel, before they brought this bogus January 6th indictment against Trump in Georgia for the non-crime of objecting to a presidential election, which is allowed by the Electoral Count Act of 1887 and the First Amendment. This is Democrat lawfare. This is election interference. This is a criminal conspiracy, and these are republic-ending tactics by Joe Biden and these Democrat prosecutors and judges.
Well, it's absolutely right. So you've made quite the case there with these tactics, and that this is essentially a concerted effort working together, a conspiracy, have you will, against the president to employ this, lawfare against him, election interference to try to damage him for election day and otherwise. But what can be done about it when, you're making the case very well for sort of the concerted acts and efforts together, coordinating from, Joe Biden and Jack Smith and these other prosecutors. And like you said, Nathan Wade, going there. And by the way, he's the superpower. You know that, right? He's like a Superman. He's a superhero. He can work, and he apparently bills, 23 out of 24 hours?
No, 24 out of 24.
24 out of 24.
When he wasn't taking his Grey Goose girl, Fannie Willis, on these trips around the world, he worked around the clock.
Oh, my God, I can't with this guy. The 2 of them is just ridiculous. I mean, if it wasn't so absolutely appalling, it'd be funny. Okay, so let's take it a step further. Where do we go from here? How is this case going to resolve? What if through some bizarre situation they get, some kind of, conviction in this lawfare weaponized jurisdiction? Talk us through that.
I think there's no question in this jury that voted. The jury pool is 85% against President Trump. There are 2 million people on this insane asylum called Manhattan, and 85% of them voted against President Trump. And if you look at the juror questionnaire that this Democrats judge Juan Merchan sent to the potential jurors to weed them out, he's asking these potential jurors if they follow Trump on social media, if they have truth accounts, but they're not. This judge is not asking these potential jurors if they're Biden supporters, if they follow Biden on social media. So the 10 Trump supporters in Manhattan who fill out this questionnaire are going to get struck with preemptory challenges by Bragg's office, and that's going to leave 1.999 million Biden supporters left to fill this, potential jury pool. I mean, it's just this whole case in New York is so rigged against President Trump, with this Soros-funded Manhattan DA bringing in this Biden senior political operative, Matthew Colangelo, Bragg bringing in Colangelo, this Democrats judge, Juan Merchan, with his financial interest in this case through his daughter's financial interest in this case, his bias, his donations to Biden, his donation to another anti-Trump cause, and the fact that he rigged the jury questionnaire so you can easily weed out the very few Trump supporters who actually live in Manhattan.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. It's just, it's such a biased, prejudiced forum. You cannot even get a fair trial there. That's the problem. And I think that's what they're counting on, and trying to put it all on the line on this case to try to convict him, of a felony. But then you've got to wait for this to go up on appeal. What does that look like in terms of the time frame? That's the problem.
This is why they brought this Democrat lawfare in D.C., where it's 95% Biden, New York, Manhattan, where it's 85% Biden, and down in Fulton County, Georgia, where it's 75% Biden. They know that these are some of the bluest, most anti-Trump jury pools in America.
Forums,
all they care about, as we discussed, Kimberly, is they want that criminal conviction before November 5th, 2024, before the election. They see polling where if President Trump is a convicted felon, Biden could possibly win. I would argue that it's going to backfire as the American people tune in to these kangaroo courts, to these third world Zimbabwean courts, and see how bogus these trials are. This is going to backfire. It's even going to backfire with voters who traditionally vote for Biden, like black men, who you see are starting to move to Trump in numbers that should terrify President Biden. Black Americans make up, 13% of the population. They vote 95% Democrat. If you switch that from 95% Democrat to 85% Democrat, that's a 1.3% swing in the electorate. That changes the outcome of a close election. And you're seeing President Trump winning 15, maybe even 20% of the black vote. If that's the case, it's game over, Joe Biden. This lawfare, this election interference is backfiring. They're turning him into Nelson Mandela, as President Trump jokes.
Oh, absolutely. That's the thing. I mean, do you see any of these cases in any way being, favorable, that the president has a strong case to be able to throw it out? I just am frustrated that it's going to have to go through this whole, procedure, be able to go up to the Supreme Court, et cetera, to be able to get some justice. I would love for some of this to be thrown out on some kind of motion to dismiss, et cetera, whether after evidence is presented or whatnot.
Well, you're going to see in this case in New York that he's going to get railroaded. They're going to keep him in this courtroom for the next 6 to 8, maybe weeks, maybe longer. And this judge threatened to put Trump in jail if he wasn't in the courtroom for every single day for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Even saying that that President Trump can't go to his son's graduation party, or contemplating not allowing President Trump to go to his son's graduation party. This is insane what this Democrat judge is doing. And they know what they're doing. They waited 30 months to bring these bogus charges in 4 different Democrat hellholes. They knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted Trump to be stuck in a courtroom instead of on the campaign trail for the election season for the next 6 months. And this is going to backfire. And at the Article 3 project, we're going to make damn sure this backfires, because we've done over 3,000 media hits so far, and we'll do as many as it takes to get out the word that this is Democrat lawfare, this is Democrat election interference, and the American people, not Democrat prosecutors and Democrat judges and Democrat juries and Democrat hellholes like New York, D.C., and Atlanta, get to decide who is our president.
Yeah, it's absolutely outrageous. You just can't even make this up. It's out of some bizarre Netflix show that's not very good, and but it's happening to President Trump, but his spirits. And, he's just incredibly strong and tough and unbelievable. And I just think it's further evidence of why he is the right choice to be commander in chief and to lead this country, because no one can say that the man isn't up to the job with the amount of pressure and stress and abuse that he has taken. It has been humanly remarkable to see the extent to which he's able to not just survive, but master the situation, own it, talk to the media, deliver, fight back. And if he doesn't fight back, what are they going to do to the rest of us? That's the problem.
That's exactly right. This is a billionaire former and likely future president. It is totally unacceptable, un-American what they've done to him, but he can fight. He has the resources. He has the bully pulpit. He has the ability to fight. But guess what? If they can do this to Trump, just imagine what they can do to the rest of us. They're going after Trump, his top aides, his attorneys, his supporters on January 6th, parents, Christians. Trump is simply in their way. And if they take out Trump, God save the rest of us.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's the thing. So, he keeps fighting, but he legitimately is in very good spirits. And he's very strong and resolute and stoic and handling this in really a truly remarkable way. And I know you agree. I really appreciate all your analysis. We can never get enough of you. That is for sure. And congratulations on chasing Trump as well. Article 3 Project founder Mike Davis, tell everyone where they can go to get more information and connect with you.
Article3project.org, and all of our social information's on there. Thank you very much, Kimberly.
All right. Fantastic. Be well, my friend.